What is going on, YouTube? We're working on another custom today, and today we're working on a 1966 Ford Fairlane GT. Oh yeah, it's got a pretty cool looking paint job on there. Ford Fairlane was pretty popular in NASCAR for quite a while. Right before they started going into the Ford Torino Talladegas, this was what was tearing up the track in NASCAR for the Ford Motor Company. This car was sent in by Nick Devers, and I think I got a pretty cool idea for this, and it should be a pretty fun build. I've already drilled out the posts and using the 2x56 button head screws. So let's get this thing all taken apart and see what we're working with here. Sometimes they can be a little bit stubborn to get apart once you've screwed them back in, but so there we are. Everything's looking pretty basic, nothing too crazy, and I think this body, being pretty boxy looking, will be a good canvas for what I have planned. I think it'll look pretty sweet. So there it is. It's all taken apart and it is ready to get this paint off there. So let's get this paint off and start working on this thing. I use Citrus Strip stripping gel to remove the paint. I like using this stuff. It's pretty easy to work with. And I just apply a pretty moderate coat all over the car. And then I let it sit for about 15 to 30 minutes. And it'll start looking like this. I'll knock off most of the paint with the paintbrush. And then I'll go over it with some steel wool and soap and water to make sure I remove all the paint and the citrus strip. And now it is ready for some primer. I use Krylon Gray Primer to go over the car. Then I sprayed it with Krylon Cover Max Satin Bright White, and then once that dried, I went over it with some Krylon Gloss Paint, and now it is ready for some decals. The paint scheme I'm going with for this one is from a car that ran in NASCAR in 1965 and was driven by the legend A.J. Foyt. Now obviously, A.J. Foyt is best known for his time spent in Indy, but he actually has a pretty legit NASCAR career. Foyt was the man when it came to the Indianapolis 500, which for generations was the most significant auto race in the United States. The tough Texan is an Indy legend, the first driver to win the race 4 times. He's the only person to have driven in the race for 35 consecutive years. He did 4,909 laps around the oval for a total of 12,272.5 miles, or about 5 trips from New York to San Francisco. He earned over $2 million competing in the Indy 500. His 7 national IndyCar championships remain a record. So do his 67 IndyCar victories, which are 15 more than the number 2 driver, Mario Andretti. One year, Foyt won an astounding 10 of 13 races. By the time A.J. Foyt decided to try his hand at NASCAR racing, he had already been a professional driver for about 8 years. Foyt only needed 10 races to get his first victory in NASCAR. Richard Petty dominated the 1964 Firecracker 400 at Daytona until he dropped out with engine problems. Foyt swapped the lead with Bobby Isaac for the final 50 laps, finally passing Isaac on the final lap to win the race. In January of 1965, Foyt qualified and ran in the front of the pack for most of the day with Dan Gurney and Parnelli Jones in the Motor Trend 500 at Riverside. Parnelli retired with mechanical issues, leaving Gurney and Foyt to contest the lead. Late in the race, dueling with Gurney, Foyt spun out, but he was able to get his car refired, and he charged through the field in an attempt to regain lost positions. After running hard to catch the leader, Foyt's brakes failed, entering turn 9 at the end of Riverside's mile-long downhill back straight. Foyt turned the car into the infield at more than 100 miles per hour, was launched off an embankment, dropped into a lower area, and slammed into a sandy embankment, violently tumbling end over end several times. The track doctor pronounced Foyt dead at the scene, but fellow driver Parnelli Jones revived him after seeing movement. Foyt suffered severe chest injuries, a broken back, a fractured ankle, and was very lucky that that car didn't become his coffin. Foyt is the only person to record victories at the Indianapolis 500, Daytona 500, 24 Hours of Daytona, and 24 Hours of Le Mans. Alright, I think it is time to get this Ford Fairlane back together. I didn't do anything with the base. Wheels roll really well, and it rolls straight, so that's a bonus. I didn't do anything with the interior. I think it's going to look just fine. If not, I'll take it out and I'll paint it. That's the beauty of being able to do custom cars. If you screw up, you can, most of the time, fix them. And the glass is looking in pretty good shape. So let's get everything back together and see how it turned out. I want to thank Nick Devers for sending this car in. He's helped out quite a bit for this series, and it is much appreciated. And as usual, I'm using the 2x56 button head screws to screw it all back together. Alright, time for the moment of truth. Let's see how it all turned out. Oh yeah, check that out. AJ Foyt. I think it turned out really well. This was a little bit different. Normally I'm used to painting everything, but to have decals that cover the whole hood, trunk, and roof was a little bit different for me. What I did find out though is, especially when I was trying to press the decals down, this stuff, if you get too rough with it, it can kind of rub away some of the paint, which you can see right there. And then when I sprayed it with clear, for some reason I got a buildup, and it kind of came out that way, which doesn't ruin it, but not quite as clean as I wanted. Same thing happened right there. And I don't know, I went over it with some rubbing compound and everything to try and get it out, but it didn't. And it's just where the seams are. It's probably where the paint gets a little bit heavy. So, oh well, no big deal. And then I didn't have quite enough to finish the hood, which is kind of a bummer. But, oh well. I still think it looks pretty good. And I like it. I think it's a very good little AJ Foyt tribute. But, yeah, pretty cool looking car, I think. I do like the decals on there. Those are pretty sweet. And I think it came out pretty well. I will say that the clear on top of these decals shines really, really nice. No orange peel, no nothing. So, anyways, let's go take a few closer looks at this. So the car that this paint scheme was actually on was a Ford Galaxy, but I don't have a Ford Galaxy, and I wasn't going to pay the eBay prices to find one. So I had the Ford Fairlane, and I figured it would be a fitting tribute to AJ Foyt, especially since the Fairlane actually competed in NASCAR. The name Fairlane came from Henry Ford's Fairlane Mansion located in Dearborn, Michigan. The Ford Fairlane was introduced in 1955 as Ford's full-size model and was available in 6 different body styles. The 1966 Fairlane was the 5th generation of the Fairlane, and introduced for that model year were the GT and GTA packages. The GTA series came equipped with the Sport Shift Cruise-O-Matic automatic gearbox and a 390 cubic inch V8. Definitely a very cool car that did really well in NASCAR. As a matter of fact, Mario Andretti got his Daytona 500 win behind the wheel of a Fairlane. So, very cool. Well, there you go. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Let me know what you think in the comments down below, and we will see you on the next one.